The roads map when you guys went out yesterday. Yeah, they're really slushy. Was it worse in the morning when after school? I didn't realize it. You think it was worse than the worst?
No.
Yeah. Mr. Bonner, the liaison. You guys know Dean or Mr. Bonner? Yeah. He said, he said that for an hour yesterday, he had to go to Rockville. And he said it was terrible. On 20 at like 11:30 yesterday. All right, so we are gonna like skip over sections 3, 4, and 5. And then we're gonna spend 2 days on this packet and the worksheet. Tomorrow, when you turn in the worksheet, if you think of it, when we spend 2 days on a worksheet, if you try to remember to put plus 20 on the top, that'll remind me to give you guys 20 points versus 10 when you turn it in or when I grade it. So what we have done so far this chapter is we started out with like a single rational expression and we simplified it. Then we did 2 rational expressions and we multiplied them and divided them. Then in the last section, what we did is we had 2 rational expressions and we added them or subtracted them. Today, what's going to happen is we're going to have what's called a rational equation. So in our case, we're always going to have 2 rational equations, either added or subtracted, and then it's going to be equal to either another rational expression or a fraction or just a plain number. Okay, so and I think all of them that I chose, we'd have what looks like 2 fractions added together equal to 1. Okay, when we go to do this, what we do is we still find that least common multiple out of the bottom. Okay, so when you guys look at this one, for 3 and 9, what's the smallest number that 3 and 9 go into? Doesn't 3 go into 9? And 9 obviously divides into 9. So your smallest number would just be 9. Okay. And then you always take the largest amount of each of the variables. You only have an X and we only have one of them. So our least common multiple would be X. Okay. Then another thing that you have to do in these, and we kind of talked about this early on in the chapter, is you have to decide what your X can't equal. And then when you solve the problem and get your answer, you want to make sure that what you get isn't what X can't be. It's not going to happen very often. I think in our notes over today and tomorrow, it only happens one time. So like if you forgot that on the test to compare your answer to this, again, it wouldn't be a huge thing if you wrote that answer, but you might lose a half a point or something like that. But you get your answer and you should check that it's not one that you can't have. And when you have something on the bottom that is just like an X or a Y, what that can't equal is 0. Okay. when you have like X plus 5 on the bottom, that's different. But if you just have a variable on the bottom, no pluses or minuses with the variables, then it just can't equal 0. Okay. Now, what we do when we do these rational expressions is we multiply the least common multiple by all three things. Okay. So I'm going to take that 9x and I'm going to multiply that by this 4 over 3x. Then I'm going to multiply my least common multiple again times this. And then I'm going to take my least common multiple again times this. And do you want to put your laptop away, please? Okay, now what we're going to do, once I do that, is I'm going to look at what can I cross out with this. Okay, if you have an X on the top and an X on the bottom, do you guys get you can cancel those? So this and this can cancel. Okay, then what I do with my numbers like that, if I have a 9 and a 3, I just try to reduce it. And 3 goes into 9 3 times. So it's like you're dividing this by 3, which you'd get a 1, and you're dividing this by 3, which you'd get a 3. Okay, do you guys get that? It's kind of like you're just dividing 3 into 9, and you'd get a 3. Now, what I'm left with then is just 3 times 4. The bottom, really, both of them canceled, and 3 times 4 is 12. Okay. Then over here, what I do is, again, I have an X and an X, so those cancel. And I'm left with nothing on the bottom, but I have 9 times 7, which is 63. Okay. Then over here, I have a 9 on top and a 9 on the bottom. So those cancel. Okay. And then I have 5 times X. Now that looks a lot easier to solve. So I add these two together, which would give me 75 equals 5x. And then I divide by 5. And when you do that, 75 divided by 5 is what? 15. And that is your answer. The last thing you want to do is just make sure the answer you got is not this. And it isn't. If it was, I should point that out. If it was, what you do is you draw a circle with a line through it. And that means empty set. And it's the same thing as no solution, kind of. Okay. So if you wrote no solution to that would be okay. Or you could write this, which means empty set. It just means that you don't have an answer. All right, so now if we look at this one, again, when you have nothing added or subtracted on the bottom, the first thing I do is look at 2 and 4, and I think, what is the smallest number that 2 divides into and 4 divides into? And 2 goes into 4, so it's just 4. Okay, 2 goes into 4 and 4 goes into 4. Then you take the smallest amount of variable and you only have an X in each of them. You only have 1, so that's just X. Okay. What X can't equal is you can't divide by 0, so our X cannot be 0. And on the test, okay, these two are answers as well as this. So in your assignment, you're going to see that you'll have a blank for this, as well as that. And on the test, you'd get credit for all 3 of them also. Okay, so like this is a definite part of your answer. Now, what we do is we take that least common multiple, 4x, and we multiply it by the first thing, 3 over 2x. Now, again, when I do a problem like this, Whenever it's subtraction, remember I changed this to plus and that to minus. Okay, so I'm gonna write this as plus, and then I have to multiply 4x times this. So I'm gonna write that as 4x times -2 over x. Okay, equals, and then I'm gonna take 4x times 1/4. Okay, now I can just start crossing things out. So if I look here, I have an x on top and x on the bottom, so those cancel. I have really 4 divided by 2 is what that is. So the 2 cancels, 2 goes into 4 twice. And then you have 2 times 3, which is 6. Now here your x cancels and your x cancels. And this is 4 times a -2, which is -8. And then here my 4's cancel. And I'm left with 1 times x, which is x. And then I just have to simplify. 6 plus a -8 is -2. So that is my answer. And the only thing x couldn't equal is 0, so we're good. I don't think you'll find today that you'll have any empty sets, but tomorrow we will. Okay, now if we look at this one, again, we're looking at what is the smallest number that 5 divides evenly into, 10 divides evenly into, and 2 divides into. Do you guys get it? Would be 10, right? So this would be 10. Then the biggest power of y that we have is just y. So this is just going to be y again. Okay. Then it says, what can y not equal? And again, when it's just a plain y there with nothing added to it or subtracted, it's just y can't be 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take and multiply 10y times this first fraction. And then we're going to take 10y times the second fraction. And then we're going to take 10y times this last fraction. Now, when I look here, okay, notice I have a y on top and a y on the bottom, so those cancel. And then this is really like 10 divided by 5. 5 goes into 10 twice. So what we're left with is just 2 times 4, which is 8. Then here you have a 10 on the top and a 10 on the bottom. Those cancel. And you're just left with y times 1, which is y. And then here your y cancels. And then it's like 10 divided by 2. And 2 goes into 10 5 times. So you're left with 5 times 3, which is 15. And then that's a lot easier to solve. We just subtract 8 and we get that y equals 7. Okay. And remember, you just have to make sure y doesn't equal 0. So that is your answer. Now, if we look at example 4, this one, we have a 10 and a 5. So you think, what number do 10 and 5 both go into? And it's 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2. Then when you have something where it's like x plus something or x minus something, that is one of your factors that have to be over here. So if I had like an x plus 2 and an x plus 1, I'd have to put both of them here. Now, what can x not equal? And what x can't equal? What x can't equal is what you would get when you set x plus 1 equal to 0. And do you guys get that that would just be the opposite of what is with the x? So x can't equal a -1. So if this is x plus 1, x can't equal a -1. If this was x minus 1, it would be x can't equal a +1. You just take the opposite of this. Okay? Then I'm to the point where I have my least common multiple, and I'm going to multiply that by each of these. So I take 10 times x plus 1 times the first thing plus 10 times x plus 1 times the second thing equals 10 times x plus 1 times the last thing. Okay. Then I get to the point where I look at what can I cancel. Notice here you have a 10 on the top and a 10 on the bottom, so those cancel. And what I'm left with there, I would write the 9 first, and I'd keep the x plus 1 in parentheses. I'm going to end up distributing that 9. So if you wanted to, you could have distributed it while you wrote it down. Here, I have an x plus 1 on top and bottom, so those are gone. And 10 times 2 is 20. Here, I have a 5 on the bottom and a 10 here. So 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 twice. So here's what I have left here. I have 2 times 2 times x plus 1. So I would just multiply these two numbers. 2 times 2 is 4, and that's times x plus 1. Okay. And again, if you wanted to save time, you could have thought of this as 4 times this and distributed the 4 as you wrote it down if you wanted to save a step there. Now, what we're going to do is distribute here and here. Okay. So 9 times x is 9x, 9 times 1 is 9, and then I have plus 20. Here I get 4x plus 4. Then I just keep simplifying. Here I'm going to combine my like terms. 9 plus 20 is 29. And then I'm going to subtract 4x. And 9x minus 4x is 5x plus 29 equals 4. And then I'm going to subtract 29. And I get 5x equals, this is -25. Divide by 5, and x is a negative. Okay. And all you have to make sure is that it's not a -1. And one thing I just haven't said yet, in these problems, it's hard as the problems get more in depth to have a whole number answer. It's nice to always have a whole number answer, but as we go through this lesson, they're not always whole numbers. So if you get a decimal, I do have my key up here. Don't be surprised. Today, yeah, you get a decimal on the first one and the fourth one. So yeah, don't be surprised if you don't get a whole number. All right, so let's look at this. This one's kind of like that previous one. So the first thing I always do when I have a minus, I change this to plus and I put my minus there. Then you think, what do 3 and 12 both go into? 3 goes into 12, so that'd be 12. And then you have this factor x minus 5, so you put that in parentheses. Okay. What do you guys think x can't equal?
5.
Yes, the opposite of this, which would be 5. Very good. Now I take and I multiply this. 12 times x minus 5 times that first parenthesis. or first fraction is what that is. Then I'm gonna go 12 times x minus 5 times negative 3 over x minus 5 equals, and then I do 12 times x minus 5 times 19 over 12. Now I try to cross out what I can. So the only thing I can cross out here is 3 goes into 12 4 times. So I would multiply these two numbers. 4 times 7 is 28, and that is times x minus 5. Then here what crosses is my x minus 5s, and 12 times a negative 3 is a negative 36. So I could have wrote plus a negative 36 or just minus 36. And then here what happens is my 12s cancel, and I'm left with 19 times x minus 5. And then we just use algebra. So we're going to distribute here, and I'd go 28 times x, which is 28x. When you go 28 times 5, a negative 5, you're going to get minus 140. Then I have this minus 36. Here I distribute, and I go 19 times x minus 19 times a negative 5. That's going to be minus 95. Then these are going to, I'm going to combine those. Negative 40 minus 36 is negative 176. And now what I'm going to do is take this 19x over and by subtracting it. 28x minus 19x is 9x minus 176 equals negative 95. I'm going to add 176. And I get 9x equals 81. Divide by 9, and x equals 9. And if you look up here, the x just couldn't equal 5, so that is your answer. So I think we're going to stop there. We have 5 left that I'll do tomorrow. And I'm going to give you guys a little sheet, and you're going to do 1 through 5 on the worksheet. Wait to do the rest till tomorrow. Okay? Then on Monday, I'm going to teach just a little bit of trig. You guys remember learning like sine, cosine, tangent, and geometry? I'm going to learn just one day of that and then review Tuesday, Wednesday, and you'll have a test on chapter 7 with that little bit of trig on Thursday.
What? Yeah. I swear on the board just that.
Yeah, those on the
Thank you. You're kidding. I'm so stressed about all that over nothing. I did this whole worksheet with the whole. Well, I distinctly remember asking him yesterday if he had tested and he said, yeah.
One through 5. So you guys know how to do 1 through 5.
I think, did he say that this would do? Study. It's so confusing. There's different things for the same class.
What? Yeah, it is.
Highly useful to answer.